رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Everyone can hear me well, right? Inshallah. Yes. Okay. Tamam. So today, inshallah, as the last session of this series of parenting, I want to touch upon three things. Number one, I'm going to go back a little bit of comparing the Western model of parenting to the Islamic model of parenting and how the former influenced the latter and how the Western model influenced the Islamic model and not vice versa. And then we're going to talk about the Prophet ﷺ's model briefly because there's a lot to say about that. And then we're going to look at some main problems that we have and we're facing today as parents and how could we address them or solve them, okay? So three main points today and then Q&A discussion if there is. So again, number one, Western model versus Islamic model. Number two, Prophet's model of parenting. And number three, what are some of the main problematic issues that I've seen? Maybe you can also write to now what you think in your society, in your community, what is the, and I'm not talking about like children being, you know, like rowdy or something like that. I'm talking about real problematic issues. Maybe you can write it down and then I'll go through them. So I'll list some of them that I've been faced with and then we're going to try to give you some solutions and discuss them, right? Okay, so the Western model of parenting, of course, there's a lot, and nothing can be said as just black and white. There's been a lot of studies done. There's a lot of great books on parenting from a Western perspective, and I have to be fair with that. There's a lot of advancement in child psychology and how to raise children. And when you read these books, there's one called Parenting. And I have some books, if anyone wants to borrow them, that I think are good. But again, you have to read them or look at this system in general with the specs of Islam. You have to. You cannot. The problem is that what the Muslims are doing, they take advice from psychologists and counselors, non-Muslims, and they might say a lot of good things, but their premise is wrong. Their starting point is wrong because it's not Islam. You have to understand, Islam is not a religion where you say, yeah, if I need something related to the mosque, zakah, siyam, salah, I go to the ustaz. But if I need something related to my mind, I'm having problems, I will go to the non-Muslim counselor or psychologist, pay them 300 ringgits an hour, and then they will solve my problems. I get 20, 30 sessions, and all of a sudden, I feel better, I get some medicine, and so on and so forth. And then, you know, things are okay or not sometimes, right? There's a mistake in that. There's a fundamental mistake. And of course, I'm not necessarily blaming people that they're doing that. And they're seeking help and support with their children as well. Because a lot of their children have problems, are depressed, have behavioral problems, you name it, right? So they take them to behavioral therapists who are not Muslim. And again, they have a lot of good. I'm not saying that they are horrible. However, depending on where you are in your treatment, the kufr or disbelief and the theory that comes out of it and the practice that come out of it might become very evident. So I know a case recently where the child was being treated for depression, anxiety, and so on. And what the person was telling them that you can be whatever. No one can tell you what to do. No one. You just be what you feel. And while that sounds very, very nice and cute, we know that that is not correct. Because we be what Allah tells us to be. And we have to be His servants. It sounds this, it sounds that. This is the reality. Allah says that whoever turns away from his dhikr, and here dhikr is not just saying subhanallah, subhanallah. Okay, I don't pray, I don't do anything, but I say subhanallah, alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, or Allahu, Allahu. No, Allah says, whoever turns away from my remembrance, from Islam, from praying, from doing what I tell them, Allah will give them a ma'ishatan danqa. It is like a miserable life, a life of stress, a life of regret, a life of weakness, a life of depression. And you can go to 1,000 shrinks. They will not solve your problems. You will still feel depressed. And they will just be patching up, using plasters, using literally band-aids to stop, bleeding, a big, internal bleeding or something like that, right? It doesn't work like that. They'll give you antidepressants, which might cause imbalance in your hormones, might cause imbalance in your chemicals in your brain, and might make you feel okay for some time, but you're going to become addicted to those. You'll never be able to be in control of your own emotions and of your reality, you or your children. Because the treatment is not correct. There are good things in that treatment. I'm not saying that. And the Muslim he has to always, or she has to always be fair when assessing different things. We can't just say, oh, they're kuffar. Nothing is good from them. Nothing like, no, the Prophet used to look at sometimes the kuffar, and if there's something khair or something good, that he would, learn from. And he would use it if it is. A lot of these strategies of battle that Khalid bin Walid had was learned before Islam, during his Jahiliyyah. We know that the Prophet accepted Salman al-Farsi's advice on building the trench and many things, right? This is not about, oh, we're just so arrogant that we don't take anything from the kuffar. No. It's just about what's the premise and what's the foundation of this treatment, because we're dealing here with human beings, with their hearts, with their minds, with their souls. And in Islam, it's all attached. There's no such thing that, the mosque, I'll leave it to the ustaz, my tafsir, my fiqh, and my madhab. But when it comes to my life, my mind, my soul, my spirit, my well-being, I'll take it to Dr. Phil. It doesn't work like that. And of course, sadly, the problem is we don't have Muslims that many who are qualified in Islamic counseling. And when I mean Islamic counseling and Islamic psychology, I don't mean you study Freud and you study, Locke, and you study all kinds of psychologists and theorists, and then you Islamicize it. That's not what I mean. We need, as I always say, to go back to grassroots level and start developing our own systems. And sadly, we don't really have that. The closest that you'll find in terms of Islamic psychology was a book that was written by a convert, by a revert, and it's called Positive Islamic Psychology. Positive psychology is already a branch, or you can say a jurisprudence of psychology, a school of thought, and Islam somehow was put into it by this convert that, rahimahullah, he passed away. I believe he was here in Malaysia for quite some time. I cannot remember his name right now. I will check it. Let me check it for you, just to give you the reference. Anyway, he was a scholar, mashallah, who Muhammad al-Mahdi Jenkins and Abdulaziz bin Azimullah. It's Positive Islamic Psychology Handbook. I think this is the one that I'm talking about, but there might be another. But I know that it was here in Malaysia that his advisor reviewed it. So, mashallah, the brother, he passed away. He died from cancer, rahimahullah. But Positive Islamic Psychology is like the closest thing that you get. We don't have our own things, right? So I don't blame the people who start going around to different shrinks, non-Muslims, because that's the only way out. They take their children for therapy, for sessions, for guidance, and so on. We have a lot of children who are suffering from learning disabilities, right? So the Western model, the non-Muslim concept, is advanced in dealing with these learning disabilities. And again, there will be a lot of mercy and compassion and guidance and grace and love and care and development that will be addressed within this system. However, the problem comes when the kufr comes in, right? When they start telling you, and I think we're all adults here, right? But I'll tell you an experience where a young man went to the doctor, to the psychologist, and he was depressed. And he was depressed because he was alone and he was away from his family studying. And you're talking about he's just 18, right? A lot of you have teenagers, and you said that you have problems with teenagers. He was just 18, and he was totally depressed. And the shrink was very nice, very professional, understanding everything, not jumping into medicine right away, and so on. And literally the guy told him at the end that he says, you just need a girlfriend. He said, you just need a girlfriend or a boyfriend. You just need to have sex. That's it. You're just overly worked out and you have a lot of stress in you. And you just need to go to a club and just hook up with someone. If you want a boy, you can get a boy. If you want a girl, you can get a girl. And he kind of told him, go, you can find it here and there. Which is, see, everything is all professional. Everything is all nice and dandy until it comes to such ethics and morals, right? And instead of telling them, turn to your God, or, it's good to get married, and, maybe you should talk to your family or something like that, which I usually tell the youth, if they're facing these issues. The guy told him, just go, you need a girlfriend, man, and other weird stuff that have happened that I've heard from, people have gone to these psychologists and so on. But going back to the issue of parenting, right? So there's a lot of goodness in these systems, the Western system. You will find theoretical wise that they are quite good at laying out rules. There's a lot of books. I've gone through a lot of books. I've seen a lot of books in my education. And as I said, if you want to borrow some, you can. I'll give it to you. And really, when you read about it, when you read through this, you'll find that, wow, it's like Islam. Have respect, lay down rules very clearly, demarcate the territory, expectations, responsibilities, rights and regulations. It's really like an HR manual, and very nicely written with love and care and compassion, and how you have to develop and nurture the soul, and how the mother has to, and the father here. Honestly, when you read through it, you'll find a lot of times that you feel like, wow, this is like really like Islam, right? So theory-wise, a lot of things, there are no problems with it. The only issue that comes in, and you know why there's no problem, I'll tell you why so we understand as well, is because human beings have fitra. When we're talking about a lot of these developmental issues, this is fitra. Right? What is fitra, guys? It is the natural disposition that Allah has created us on. So the mother bird takes care of the baby birds because did someone teach her? Yes, Allah taught her. It's in the fitra. A female knows how to take care of her children if she's not corrupted and she's not distracted by movies and, social media and work and all these things. It's in them. Same with the men. They have this protective, natural disposition to take care of the wife and the children and to provide and to, unless they're corrupted and they become, taken by social media and movies and playing video games. Yes, adult male fathers sometimes waste time playing video games, not working and sitting and becoming couch potatoes, right? But that is a corruption of the fitra. So we all know to an extent how to take care and nurture our children. It is in the fitrah. And that is why you find that these non-Muslims write these amazing books with things that when you read, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, that is actually Islam. If you were to not even know who's writing it, you would say, oh, this is very Islamic. You understand? So the problem comes in when you go in the finer details of ethics and morality. For example, you will find chapters within these books that talk about that you should speak to your children about safe masturbation. Yes. And in the schools as well, they're introducing that, how to touch themselves in a safe way. And you'll find they're very serious. It's not even like a joke. It's like serious talk. I talk to your 6-year-old about how to safely, touch themselves and how it's okay to do it, right? This is where it becomes problematic, or LGBTQT. I've just seen recently a video. I'll try to share it if I remember on the group, of how they sent in clowns to literally guys, subhanAllah, like almost kindergarten, like lower primary, to teach them about LGBTQT in a fun way, like a circus, balloons, and all these things. Imagine, guys, how aggressive these people are and how weak we turn to be. And we just kind of sit there and allow them to do these things. And it's coming. This is in the West, though. It's coming this way. Just like everything else came already, it will come. The wave, the tsunami, is very difficult to break. You really have to have a lot of buildings and trees on the beach to be able to break that tsunami. Okay? So unless we start building some buildings and erecting some buildings and some walls to stop the tsunami, it will reach home. It will destroy our houses. It will flood. It will smash it. So when it comes to these things, these books become very, very descriptive and very, very vulgar and very, very wrong, right? About relationships, about ethics, about personal, about sex, about this and that. And as I said, a lot of the times, what I've also discovered is what they do is for the younger, young adults who go to counseling. When I say young adults, there are 14, 15-year-olds who are going for counseling, 13, 12-year-olds going to psychologists. And the psychologist will ask them, like, what's the problem? And usually the young people will complain about their parents, how their parents are strict, and their culture and their religion. I'll tell you a few stories from Canada, because in Canada, schools have counselors inside. Here too, but not to that extent. There, those counselors are a lot of times hired by outside companies, or they get called in specifically for certain cases, and they are empowered by the law to act. So they'll go to these counseling sessions, these parenting sessions, these, and sometimes the kids alone and sometimes with the parents. And they'll say stuff like, my parents are strict, it's their culture, they are Malaysian, they're Pakistani, sometimes they spank me, and they're like, what? They spank you? Okay, and they write the report, and as I said, they file a report with the police, with the Children's Aid Society, and then a lot of times the kids get divorced from the parents. They get moved. A lot of times the counselor or the child nurturer will tell the children that, look, you don't have to listen to this. You're free. This is a free society, especially in the West. This is a free country. You choose your own religion, and you don't feel depressed because you want to be with a girl or you want to be with a boy, right? Because it's natural. It's natural. It's part of your development. All parents allow your children to develop naturally. What they don't tell you is that, as John Locke puts it in his philosophical term of the tabula rasa, the blank slate, right? So human beings are, this is the fitra. And then you start building on that depending on which input. They don't want the Muslim parents to push too much on their children these fundamental beliefs. They say, let them make their own choice. But if you think about it, that's such a hypocritical statement. Because it's like, well, it's us versus them, right? I mean, if I'm not going to teach my children, well, they're going to learn anyway at school from teachers, from other students, from media, from what they watch. So you're expecting me to sit down and do nothing because you think I'm influencing them. But they're being influenced every second and moment by everything else around. So why the double standard, right? Because they don't want parents to fundamentalize, these children. They want them to be products of their society, which is very stealth. It's very stealth type of education or parenting. If you don't say anything to your children, and believe it or not, brothers and sisters, there are some parents right now who are opting out for this in the West, even amongst the Muslims, where say, I know someone who is a Muslim, practicing, knowledgeable, and he says, I will allow my child to pick his own religion. And I said, what are you talking about, man? How? Because he has to make his own choice. But I said, but he's already being fed left and right things every day. What you mean you will allow your child to make his own choice? You're missing out, bro. Everyone is ahead of you already. You're lost, man. He's so confident that the time will come and he will be able to talk to his child when they can make their own choices. Bro, they've already been conditioned. They've already been watching the cartoons and the movies and reading the things and going to school and talking and being told a billion things and learning those things and being parented by social media, being parented by everything else. And you're late, man. You missed the train. What kind of thought is that? It's so ridiculous. But this is what it is. And some are also now going to this kind of weird talk saying that I'm not going to tell them that they're boy or girl. Let them pick their own gender. What is that, man? I mean, this is ridiculous. This gender neutral type of mentality that's out there right now. I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created them as boys or girls, and you're telling them let them pick their own gender when they realize what it is. Allahu Akbar. This is the foolishness of a system that sounds nice and looks nice. Chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. By the time you get to chapter 15 that has real problems, you've already read 15 chapters that you're like, wow, this is so nice. This sounds perfect. This is right. I agree with this. It's amazing. This is cute. This is like Islam. So by the time you reach chapter 15, okay, meaning you spent a lot of time with earning the trust or allowing the trust and believing in what they're saying. And then when it comes to time to deliver the final shot, boom, it hurts, right? So it is something that we need to understand. So yes, the Western concept of parenting has a lot of good in it, but when it gets down to these intricacies, these details, these finer details of ethics and morals, we find that they do not align with us. Why do they align with us on many other things? Because it's part of the fitrah. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in all of us to know how to raise our children, to have mercy, kindness, love, compassion, show them by example, right? Show them best practices. That's how children learn. You find in many, many books that children need to see role models, show best practices, right? And that is how they learn. And you find this in the Muslim, right? Through number one, the example of the Prophet لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَ وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that this is al-ayah, that this is in the Prophet there's a perfect example. We have to follow best practices. You have to model the behavior that you want to see in your children. And you have to do it over and over again because it is programmed. It is conditioned. So the kids keep seeing you and your wife and your husband, her wife and husband doing the proper practices in everything, not just praying. People get so happy when their little babies put a little judo on and they copy them in their salah. No, because they're going to copy you in the way you lie, they're going to copy you in the way you scream, they're going to copy you in the way you say something, the way you act, the way you are clean or not, and so on. They're going to copy in all that. So show best practices. It is a conscious, continuous action that has to take place in your houses to show your children how to behave, right? So it is part of the fitrah, and we have to show examples. But the problem is with the Muslim Ummah is that we don't have a lot of good examples. Even amongst us, sometimes we don't show. The mothers, sometimes we find, that your mothers used to know how to cook very well. I'm just speaking on cooking. Don't think I'm, this, all about patriarchy and all that. But the mothers used to know how to cook. There was some certain specific gender roles that were there, and we were okay and even proud of them. But of course, once the feminist movement started, people were somehow awakened to reality that, oh my God, it's not fair. Why do I have to cook? And we find that slowly people moved away from that. So now your daughters maybe have no clue how to cook because you felt that it's not so important anymore. And subhanAllah, we find that Fatima radiallahu anha served Ali radiallahu anha. This is Fatima. This is one of the best women. Khadija radiallahu anha, and other righteous women did serve the household and their prophet and their husband, and they're proud of it. The problem is, it's not that there's something demeaning about being a housewife, and not that this is the only thing that you can be, but excuse me. The problem is that we've been made, or women have been made to think that is bad. That is something that's not dignified. And they believe that, and now they're fighting against it. So now the sisters, young sisters, are growing not knowing how to take care of their household, and their children will have no clue anymore because we've been fooled to believe that this is something bad, right? So mothers are not showing best practices when it comes to this. So hence the children cannot make it. Fathers are, a lot of them, they're not strong, masculine, to really show the example towards our children to be real men, because this ummah needs real men. That is why I focus a lot of my work on this issue of masculinity, because I'm a male. I do support the sisters, and there's not so many, sadly, who work on femininity. There's a difference between femininity and feminism. Femininity is part of their fitrah. Allah has made them beautiful. Allah has made them soft. Allah has made them in a certain way that cannot, subhanAllah, it's just something amazing about a woman. And I'm not talking about from a negative or, attraction necessarily only perspective. I'm talking about Allah has created women in such a beautiful way. There's something so amazing about a woman. And of course, for a man, obviously the attraction, but also the concept of her being a mother, the concept of her being the nurturer. It's something so not just attractive as in just from attraction point of view, but from a spiritual perspective. That a man is just so infatuated when a woman is a woman, a feminine woman, and raising the children, that concept of her being, it's just something so amazing, subhanAllah, right? But now, sadly, they want to be more like men. And sadly, men want to be like women, to take these feminine traits. And it looks so bad. And it's just so weird and so twisted and upside down. When you look at it, it's just kind of like, yeah, some people try to push you to accept it in the name of, multi-pluralistic, all kinds of weird names. But you know that in your heart, you look at it and you're like, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't fit. You know what I mean? It doesn't fit. It's the wrong thing put in the wrong place. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I focus a lot on masculinity because I'm a male and I want to support that voice. It wouldn't be fair for me to just talk about women, right? Even though I do talk a lot about it, but I believe that there's women who talk about this and teach other women how to be real women, how to take their God-given right in this equation, in this on this earth. And it's not about competition. The problem is we've been made again to think that it's about competition. Men have to be more feminine, females have to be more masculine. We all have to be the same and equal. And it's not about equality, it's about equity. And equity is about, depending on who you are, you get exactly what fits you. And that's what Islam is all about. And Allah, it's like a football team, right? I always give this example that there's the forward and the goalie. And sadly, the goalie got upset because the forward scores all the goals. But the goalie, she forgot that she was the one to take care of the net, of the home. And now she left it unattended and wanted to go up there to score with the forward. And number one, she's not as good as the forward at scoring. So then she didn't do that well, but left the net unattended and the other team scored, hence their team lost, right? And even if it would have been the other way around, that the goalie was going to say, the forward, he says, I want to be goalie, and tells the goalie, get out. I want to, how come you're defending on the goals? He's not going to be able to perform that well because he's not trained. That's not his thing, right? And he's going to let too many goals go in and the team will lose. But both the forward and the goalie forget one thing. They're one team, and each and every one of them has a special role to do and a special position to play, and they are one team. This is what the enemies of Islam and the enemies of the natural disposition of human beings have succeeded in fooling people, is that you should be like each other. This whole equality, which sounds so nice, has been a distortion of reality, and people fell from it, and now they're just fighting with each other to create this, this world that is just not going to function properly, and it's not already. You can see, right? But going back to that, like that our children don't have, which is so important in parenting, they don't have these amazing role models that they're supposed to have. They don't have these amazing role models, especially boys. Women are still, they're feminine, as I said. They kind of do teach girls a bit more, and they're more closer to their children, so they'll be closer to their girl children as well as to their boy children. Fathers, sadly, very tough to see real strong masculine men who can be real role models, because it is part. I'm not saying that that's the only thing that boys should learn, how to be strong, but it is, right? It is something that they should learn. It is something that boys should learn from their fathers or from their culture. And yesterday we talked about that it takes the whole village to raise the child, not just the father and the mother. But they should have these masculine figures that are strong and literally physically strong. So they understand, because life is required to be physically strong. A lot of you might say, I wish I would have been stronger, right? You face challenges at work, you face challenges with some enemies in your life, even family, you name it. And sometimes you're just like, I wish I would have been a bit more physically strong and learn. And sometimes you even have to defend yourself. So you say, I wish I would have been more physically strong in defending myself. And we find the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba, all knew how to fight. And there's a difference, I said yesterday, between violence and this and fighting. They all knew how to fight. They're all strong. They knew how to horse ride. They knew how to shoot arrows. They knew how to wrestle. They knew how to swim. And the Prophet ﷺ said that, teach your children these sunan, right? Teach them how to horse ride. Teach them how to wrestle. Teach them how to swim. Teach them archery. Alhamdulillah, that in Malaysia, it's nice. I like it that you guys have archery and horse riding. Not everyone knows how to swim, but there is swimming. People do not swim. And I really encourage parents to teach their children how to fight, martial arts, karate, jiu-jitsu. Okay, jiu-jitsu is very, very strong, very good. Judo, wrestling. Okay, these are very important. I believe it's part of parenting. Why? Because the Prophet said, he said, teach. It's almost like an order, even though, some scholars say that it's like, mustahab is recommended. But the Prophet said, teach. If the Prophet, imagine the Prophet tells you something, he's here with you and he says, do this. And you're like, yeah, this is mustahab. I mean, it could, but we should really take the advice the Prophet said, isn't it? Right? That would be very disrespectful if you meet us on the Day of Judgment, Al-Kawthar, and he'll say, like, I told you guys to do this. Oh yeah, Rasulullah, we thought it's mustahab, sorry, ya Rasulullah, we didn't take your advice, right? So I believe we need, and that's why I teach fathers. I teach males how to be strong, how to be masculine, and how to teach their children, their boys, how to be, and that's a huge fundamental part of parenting that's missing right now. And that is why a lot of times the women are suffering in our society because they don't have a real man next to them. And as one sister said, very nicely she put it, she said, we became the husbands that we wanted to marry. We, the women, became the husbands or the men that we wanted to marry. And it is an issue. And then, of course, there's an imbalance. So the women start acting up, and then the children see all this, and then parenting is affected. There's fights between the husband and the wife, and the child is affected in seeing that. And they have to take a side, usually the women's side, the wife's side, and again, the man loses out in terms of him being a role model. So these are huge things that we need to fill in the gaps in the Western model. Okay, as in the Western model. As I said, just to wrap this issue up, the Western model has a lot of goodness in it. There are a lot of good books that are Islamic in its principle because it's connected to fitra, and the fitra is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Very clearly, we see that the Prophet looked into non-Muslim knowledge and took some of that knowledge and applied it. And we gave the example, I think, of Al-Khandaq, Battle Khandaq. So, he took knowledge from Salman al-Farsi. Right? And this is Khalid bin Walid, most of his fighting strategies were from non-Muslim experience. And the Prophet ﷺ praised them. So we need to understand that. Okay, so yes, there's a lot of good in the Western system of parenting. What's been written, the theory, be careful. I restate that in the theory. As for the practice, because there's so much influence from non-ethical inputs, media, the sexual, hypersexualized society, LGBTQ, the feminist movement, all these things will overshadow that theory. And when it gets applied on the ground, in the school, in the house, you name it, as I said, zina is okay, LGBTQ is okay, sometimes, dog eat dog is okay, right? Violence, we find that Western society is very violent, even though theoretically they say no, we don't like it. However, we find that a lot of their sports that are played are very violent, and they encourage wrestling, the WWE that some of our kids watch, people smashing each other, UFC, people bashing each other's faces, men and women, and so on. American football, rugby, they're very tough, violent sports. Now, it's okay to have tough sports, but you find that people enjoy the violence, right? So there's a difference between the theory of the Western concept of parenting, which I am okay with in terms of the fitra and what they write in a lot of their books, as long as it's viewed through the specs of Islam, and the application of the system, which you see that majority of people, because of the extra or the imbalance, the extreme position that's taught or picked because of the lack of balance, because remember, the premise is wrong and the foundation is wrong. There's no faith. There's no Islam. These things cannot function. A child can seek divorce from his parents. A child can complain to the police if he doesn't like something. A child can invent and lie, and the police most of the time will accept that. A child can please pretty much do what they want in the West, and hence you got the Bart Simpsons, you got the, you know, uh, the Bundys, and King of the Hill, and all these weird, type of cartoons and movies that show how kids are and what they do. South Park, right, is such a ridiculous show. I think most of you know or you've seen. I think it was at our time when we grew up as well. South Park was already there. King of the Hill was already there with Stewie and his family, and Homer Simpson, of course, and Bart Simpson. The Simpsons, I'm not sure if they're popular in Malaysia, when they were popular in Malaysia in the 90s and even now, right? Maybe you guys can tell me, but we grew up in the West with these concepts, and that's how a lot of the kids are, okay? And again, because parents are not allowed to discipline their children, as we said, there's an Arabic saying that says that the person who feels safe from the law will misbehave. The person who feels safe from the law will misbehave, right? So that's what I have to say when comparing the Western to the Islamic system. Remember, the Islamic system has at its concept, at its core, tarbiyah. And tarbiyah is different than just parenting, because tarbiyah is a full-fledged process. Parenting involves parents, while tarbiyah is a process that is actually somehow linked to parents but can be independent parents as well. And tarbiyah can be given by anyone who assumes the role of a murabbi. Okay, the murabbi. That can be a teacher, that can be a community leader, that can be an ustaz, that can be a grandparent, that can be a brother or a sister. Anyone who understands the system and applies it to raise that child into a way that will turn into a real woman and a real man who will contribute to this ummah. Because the main difference, fundamental difference between the two systems, pay attention, it's very important, is the objective of, or the outcome of that. In Western system, the outcome is that you're going to become a citizen and you will continue to have children and you'll enjoy your life, you will work, you will retire, and you will die. And of course, people do say that we should contribute to humanity and we should make a difference in the world. This is, again, part of fitrah. Humanity, human beings have that desire to help, to do good, even the worst of people, subhanAllah. Even, people who are ethically and morally incorrect, totally wrong, will have fundraisers, right? Find these rock stars and, sleeping around, drug addicts, but they'll donate millions for orphans and all these causes because it's in their fitrah. It's inside them and they want to do good. They just don't know that this is wrong and that they're morally incorrect, right? You understand? So the fundamental difference is the objective, right? On the Islamic side, the objective is Allah, Islam, da'wah, to bring Islam to this earth. So you are raising children. This is where we make a huge mistake, guys. We, the Muslim parents, make a huge mistake. We make a huge mistake, and that is that our objective is not clear. And if our objective is not clear, we can't do it. We don't have the niyyah to parent and to do parenting and tarbiyah so we can raise the next generation of people who contribute to this ummah to bring Islam. Our objective is blurry or non-existent because our existence in this world is the responsibility of being Khalifa and the responsibility of bringing light to human beings to this world, to help them, to make them realize who is the real Lord, and to bring the justice of Islam on this earth and remove oppression, right? And we're not doing that. We have been convinced by the Western model that our objective is to live, enjoy life, do our best, help here and there, die, and then the next generation comes in and does the same thing. Well, that's not what Islam teaches. I'm not sure how we read in the Quran, which again goes to show that our preachers, our ustaz, our scholars sometimes might not convey, for the sake of political correctness, might not convey the correct message. Maybe willingly or unwillingly, Allah knows best. But, and for the ones who do, Jazakallah khair, may Allah bless them, but maybe they're not heard enough. Our objective in this life is to establish Islam on this earth. And when you, remember we talked about yesterday, feeling like you have a purpose in life, like you wake up in the morning and you're like, wow, I'm really doing something. When you inspire your children with that objective, to have the same feeling or more than the Chinese and the Indians, the non-Muslims I'm talking about, because there are Chinese and Indians among our brothers and sisters, of course, I'm not talking about ethnicity, but they have this feeling that they belong to this huge civilization and they push hard to do better than the Malays, for example, in this country, right? To have like stronger and take more position and more money and more this and more. They have this desire to show you that they're better. And that is a determination that they have that's been passed on from parents. Okay, you have to show that you are better, that you're number one and they're not. We talked about the misconception, right? That they try to push that the Malays are lazy, which is totally wrong. And I refuted that in our tafsir class, right? But that's what they want to show. Through showing the opposite, they want to say that we are better and let's work harder than them. Let's take over and occupy a better position. So imagine if you have this kind of mentality, and it's not about benefit and about gaining materialistic gains. No, it's about bringing light to the world, about helping and benefiting and bringing justice to humanity while they're being oppressed, as you can see. So many systems that are oppressive and people don't know. They do not know. So opening up the eyes of humanity, what a great objective. And when we pass that and we inspire our children to that, then you're like, wow, that's something amazing, right? They feel like they have a purpose in this life, like they have to do something amazing. So when you wake up and you live every day with a purpose, then you really, really perform well. Because there's this intrinsic and extrinsic motivation that is pushing you and pulling you every day to do much better, right? To do much better. So this is what we are failing at, actually, because we're not establishing the objective for the next generation, to establish it for the next generation and the next generation. And victory will come through that. When that is clear, when everyone is clear as to where is the net that we're supposed to score on. If everyone doesn't see the net, they're just kicking the ball on the field just for the sake of running around after a ball and chasing a ball. That's not the objective of football. The objective of football is to score, not to just pass the ball. The passing and the running is just means for you to get the net, to get to the net and to score. But imagine that no one looks at the net. Everyone is just infatuated with the passing and the running and the uniforms and the shoes and all the drills. No, it's not the way it is. You have to score. We, the Muslims, are playing on the field. We're passing the ball. We're running very fast. We're doing a lot of cool things, but we are not aiming for the net. We're not shooting, and there's not going to be any goals scored. We're too scared. We say, we don't want to upset anyone. It's okay. We don't want to upset anyone. Let's just keep the ball on the field. Everyone can play, right? It's not like that. It's not like that, because the other side is scoring. The other side is shooting in our net and scoring a lot of goals. Right? So this is the main distinction, I would say, between tarbiyah, the Islamic system, and just the normal parenting, system. Tarbiyah, everyone contributes to it. Everyone, and it's a system from the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ was the اسم ربي. And I'm getting into the second point that we said we're going to cover, which is Prophet ﷺ's way of dealing and how he did tarbiyah. Right? So we understood what tarbiyah is. It is a full process that everyone takes care of and takes part in. The whole village, the whole ummah. It is a journey that continues. It is a journey that continues throughout the life. And tarbiyah, if you listen to the word tarbiyah, turabbi is actually from the root word of Rabb, right? Rabb, same root word as Rabb or Lord, Master. It shows a relationship of knowing who is above and who is the Lord, who is the disciple, right? And that's something also that gets lost in the Western system, because the West always teaches now that the teacher is just a facilitator. It's student-centered education. I keep hearing these slogans and these words. That is, it's student-centered. No, tarbiyah is God-centered. Okay, Allah is at the center. It's not the student, but the teacher is not the student, even though the teacher can learn from the student, right? And there's not an issue of arrogance. But there's that hierarchy where the teacher takes the student because he's been taken by his teacher and he was a student, and till it reaches the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that is the concept of isnad, what we learn in the science of hadith, right? That it goes and okay, heard and learned from. And it's not like just hearing, but these students spend time with their scholars and learn with them, and they earn the ijazas or the permission to narrate these hadith and to act upon them, and so on and so forth, right? So it's a very solid system of education that the Prophet ﷺ and the early Sahaba in the early generations implied to make sure, number one, that it's applied properly, that it gets passed on properly, but also that the information is authentic, right? That the information that's being passed on is the correct information, right? Which today is not the case. I mean, we do have the concept of plagiarism, but that's just you taking information from someone else and not claiming and claiming it as your own. It's not whether the information is correct or not. It's not whether the information is right or wrong. It is whether you've cited the person or not in what you claim to be yours, right? So it's not the same as the concept of isnad and authenticity. And I think we've lost that in our education system because we have taken, be it parenting or educational systems that are Western, that do not worry themselves with the authenticity of knowledge. Anyone today, as long as they have a nice camera, they have a good way of writing, they have a voice, they have followers, they can say pretty much whatever they want. As long as they can package it right and have a good way of delivering it and make a good argument, they can convince millions of people to believe in them. And that is a huge problem. Okay? So let's take a couple minutes break, 2-3 minutes. Let's say it's, let's take just 3-minute break just to drink something, and then we'll get back. Inshallah, we'll continue with the Prophet's tarbiyah and his way of dealing with children and parenting, and then we'll get into some issues and then Q&A, inshallah. Okay, so let's take a couple minutes break just to drink some water and refresh ourselves. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Let us begin, inshallah. So we talked about the Western concept of parenting. We said how there's good things in it, compared it to the concept of Islam, which is tarbiyah. We said it requires a lot more than just parents. And now we're gonna see how the Prophet ﷺ, used to do tarbiyah and parenting. So we know the Prophet ﷺ was a parent. However, obviously, his sons died. Okay, he did not have sons, and his daughters lived. Of course, we have Fatima and Kulthum, and so he made tarbiyah. But we find that he made tarbiyah to Al-Hassan wal Hussein. Okay, he made tarbiyah to Ali radiallahu anhu, and he made tarbiyah to all the Sahaba. And when we find the basic underlying, the basic foundation of the Prophet's tarbiyah was what? It was love. Okay, it was love. That's the first thing. The Sahaba of the Prophet, if you think about it, when you look at their behavior towards the Prophet, their love for the Prophet, it was only through the love that Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam cultivated himself into them, his behavior, his manners. We talked about modeling behavior, right? About showing best practices. That is how the Sahaba began to love the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now, don't get me wrong. There was many people who fought against the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Even though they respected him, considered him as Sadiq al-Amin, they fought against him. There's also people who left Islam during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And after Al-Isra wal Mi'raj, some Sahaba, at that time, obviously, to be a Sahaba, you have to die on Islam. But some people believed in the Prophet ﷺ, they left Islam. Okay, so we find that not always things will work out. And that is why I think yesterday I spoke about when parents blame themselves too much and they paralyze themselves and they cannot help other children and other siblings. The Prophet ﷺ was the perfect role model. He is the best man. However, we find that he, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, some people left him. His own uncle did not believe fully in him to actually accept Islam. So imagine how painful that was, right? Parenting does not necessarily have to do only with your own children. And I think this is where we're going wrong. That is why the whole ummah is responsible. There's level and degrees of responsibility. Of course, the first greatest responsibility is on the immediate biological parent. But everyone else is responsible. So you can imagine how the pain that he felt, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when some Sahabas at that time left Islam and turned against him and fought against him, lied against him, the pain of Abu Talib and others, right? So as I said, don't blame yourself right away, 100%, right? Don't jump into this mode of being depressed and blaming yourself because you feel that you've done something wrong. We all make mistakes, but we need to learn from them and move ahead. So the Prophet ﷺ, the main foundation for his tarbiyah, for his parenthood, for developing people was love. Love, kindness, mercy, rifq, right? Rifq, being soft in terms of softness as in behavior. And that is why we find the Sahaba were ready to sacrifice themselves for the Prophet. You know, sometimes when you read some of the hadith, you're like, oh my God, it's so exaggerated. It's because they loved them so much, they were literally ready to give up their lives. And they would say, Fidaka ya Rasulullah. You know, may sacrifice for you. May my mother and father be sacrificed for you. And they loved them so much, right? They would have these sayings, these statements, right? So they would say, Fidaka ya Rasulullah. They loved him so much. because he loved them. So we learn from here that his way was love, first and foremost, right? It's not the only way, though. We have to understand here, Islam is balanced. Because some, especially in the Western concept, will talk about only love, only mercy, only being kind, only being nice. And that doesn't work. That it doesn't work. We said yesterday, the bird doesn't fly with one wing. So, but love is so important, mercy is so, because children feel it. We talked about the story of the scholar who was walking by and he saw that child getting beat up by his mother, right? And he said, sorry, he said, oh, that's me, right? It's a beautiful story, but in the end, the child came back to the mother. Why? Because she loves him. She might have beaten him because he misbehaved, but the default is not beating. When the default is not harshness, then it's not abuse. When the default is not fear and pain, it's not abuse. The fear or punishment is always the exception when someone misbehaves. That's why punishments, crimes and punishments, and hudud, right, are exceptions. They don't happen like just every day you get punished. It's only when you misbehave, when you don't do the right thing. But the default is love, care, compassion, mercy. And the Prophet was all that. Azizun alayhi ma anittum harisun alaykum bil mu'minina ra'ufur rahim. Surah Tawbah. It hurts him that something should happen to you. All of you, ya Sahaba, and all of you, all of us. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, he told the Sahaba, I miss my beloved friends. And he said, Ya Rasul, aren't we? He said, you're my companions, but my beloved friends are those who are going to come after. They've never seen me, but they believed in me. He was talking about you and I. I mean, Rasulullah loved us before anything, right? And he knew there's going to be you and I who are going to come to 2020, you know, and we're going to love him. And he's going to love us. And he knows, you know, and he receives our salam. We say, Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah delivers our salam to him. So-and-so, brother Gabriel, he gave you salam. Allahu Akbar. Imagine that. And he says, and Allah sends back upon me 10 salutations, 10 salam, right? Something beautiful. So love is the default. Love is the foundation. Love is what we go based on. Again, that's how we find throughout. Prophet loved, for example, he loved Zayd. He loved Zayd ibn Haritha so much. You know that. Right? He adopted him before adoption was made haram in Islam. And by adoption being made haram, I'm not talking about the paperwork and all that, but like covering the lineage and saying that he is the son, your son, actual son. Because he used to be called Zayd ibn Muhammad. Zayd, the son of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is what Allah did not allow. He says, call them your brothers in Islam. So, and Zayd was so beloved to the Prophet. He loved him so much. He was called the beloved of the Prophet. And Zayd had a son named Osama bin Zayd. And Osama was very dark, speaking about George Floyd, right? Osama was black because Zayd married a black woman. And the Prophet ﷺ used to love both of them so much, and specifically used to love Osama, the black one. And in the farewell pilgrimage, Osama was with him. When the Prophet was talking about there's no difference between black and white, Osama is there. And one time Zayd and Osama were sleeping under one blanket, and a foot tracker, someone who recognizes footprints and tracks the location of people, he saw their feet and he said, this is the son of this, even though they have different colors. And the Prophet was so happy because people were still being sometimes racist. And he looked at the Rasulullah, look at his love for Hassan and Hussein. A lot of times we get angry if our children do things that are out of line. Like especially in Salah or go to the masjid, the kids start acting up, right? And I'm talking about the little ones. The Prophet ﷺ allowed Al-Hassan and Hussein to climb on his back while he is making ruku. And he prolonged the ruku in Salah, in Jama'ah, to the point that Sahaba raised his head to check what's going on, and he saw Al-Hassan and Al-Hussein, and he narrates that hadith. While we would probably throw a shoe at them or beat them after, right? Take them to the side and bang, bang, bang. You don't know how to behave in the mosque. Shame on you. And that will associate a negative feeling with praying in a masjid. And we wonder why our children don't want to go to the masjid. Because we push them away. Because we don't follow the parenting method or the tarbiyah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A lot of us would just smack our child after. If he misbehaves, he runs in front of the imam or something like that. And that's not what the Prophet did. Even during the khutbah, he felt so like he went and picked, Hassan Hussein up during his khutbah. Came down the minbar. And that's why they're Al-Hassan Hussein. That's why they're such strong leaders later on and such great. They're Sayyid al-Shabab fil Jannah. They have this special status in Jannah because Prophet ﷺ trained them so well. And of course, we find that but they were the son and daughter of Ali and Fatima radiallahu anhuma. But the Prophet ﷺ is giving tarbiyah and doing tarbiyah to them as well, right? So I think I rest the case on the fact that love is so important. It is so important. But at the same time, it has to be balanced with rules and regulations and strictness. And that is why we find that when Osama himself, the one that was black and the Prophet loved so much, came and tried to interfere in one of the rulings of a woman who was found stealing, and the Prophet got so mad at him. He loved him so much, but he got so mad at him because he said, you're trying to interfere in the rulings of Allah. Even if Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, would steal, I would cut her hand off. You see the harshness? This is harsh, man. This is no joke when it comes to rules and regulations. Okay, yes, there's mercy. Yes, there's forgiveness. Yes, there's this. But when something is established, especially it's the rules of Allah, no, you can be strong. So you balance that love. Love is default. Love is the default, is the foundation, mercy, compassion, everything. However, if someone gets out of line and disobeys Allah and disobeys the rules, then punishment comes in and harshness comes in. And yes, the punishment was implemented. Okay? Punishment was implemented, right? So we see the balance. There's a balance because if people think too much love, too much love, too much love, then again, they get sidetracked and they act up. And you know, when you spoil your child with too much, give him, they become so spoiled that they start acting up. And we find today, go outside, walk through parks, walk through malls, we find amongst different nationalities and cultures where the child starts hitting the mother or the father in public, beating them, and the parent doesn't know what to do. Because number one, they're ashamed. Number two, they don't know if the police is going to interfere or, oh my God, everyone's going to look at them. You beat your child. So now we reached a point where the children hit the parents. I'm sure a lot of you might have gone through this, where your child starts hitting you. When they get upset, they cry, they don't get something. I want this toy. No, I'm sorry, I cannot buy a third. No. They start hitting in public and everyone kicking and, throwing things. And this is something that happens a lot. Don't worry. If it happens to you, it happens to a lot of us and to a lot of people. It is a issue. Because why? Why is this happening? Because we do not have the balance. We're so scared to put our hands on our children because the law tells us hands off. But they have their hands on us. Imagine if as a parent, now okay, fine, I cannot beat my child. Imagine if my child hits me I just call the police and say, my child hit me. What they gonna say? What the police is gonna say, right? Come on. I mean, it makes no sense, is it? But okay, I cannot touch my child. Okay, I have a special number, 999, 911, whatever. Hello, police, I have to report my child is beating me. I mean, how ridiculous would that sound, right? They'll close the phone in your face. But it's what we reach. We cannot touch our children, we cannot discipline them, and they are now hitting us. They are now beating us. They are now doing that. This is the truth. You know it. Because we have failed to apply that balance. Yes, default is love, mercy, kindness, compassion. But man, if they act up and they get out of line, then the punishment should come. This is how Allah deals with this universe, with human beings, with humanity, isn't it? But yet again, we think we know better than Allah. We change the system of Allah and we are paying for it. We are paying for it. In our school, you're not allowed to hit anyone in any school these days. And if you do, you can get into big trouble. And instead of parents supporting the teachers, the parents will come with with frustrated, screaming and threatening and all that, instead of saying, like back in the days, I said, if the parents would find out that the child has misbehaved and the teacher actually beat the child or discipline, and let's use the word discipline, then you would get another round of disciplining or a couple other rounds when they get back home. They wouldn't come and cause problems for the teacher, for the principal, for the school, or threaten to sue. Why do they threaten to sue? Because that's what they've seen on movies and TV. Case versus case, this versus that in court. Oh, my child's been abused, I'm going to sue you. So I'm going to sue you too. That's all people know today. And we're slowly losing our children. So the Prophet had a very balanced way of tarbiyah. We talked about love, kindness, and we talked about being a role model, showing best practice, and that's something that we don't find today too much. It's great to look at the Prophet as a role model, and we read and we learn his life, his seerah, but at the same time, we need to have real life examples to show who follow the Prophet, to show that it works. And that is something that we don't really have that much. It's not that easy to find that, right? So the Prophet ﷺ spent time with people. I know a lot of sisters, they complain that husbands are not home enough. If the husband is providing for the family and he is working, then that is his part of the tarbiyah. Plus, of course, when he comes home, the system, the family should really, and I'm going to make this very loud and clear, the wife has a huge role in making sure that that door is open, that a hero is walking through that door. If the man acts like it, if the man spends the time seeking provision for his family, he comes and he provides a good place for them, good, everything is taken care of, he does his part. When he comes home, that door should be open, that he should have a hero welcome. Not sadly that he comes in, no one opens the door, sometimes he forgot his key, waits 5 minutes outside till everyone gets ready and gets him, opens his door, and then he comes in and nothing is ready, everything is upside down, and then everyone screams or whatever, and then the woman will blame the man that, oh, you're not home. No, he spent a lot of time outside, okay, if he does it right, and he should be welcomed properly. And when he talks, he is law in the house. That woman cannot say, well, you haven't been home the whole day, now you're screaming at the children or you're getting upset. No, he has the right to do that. He has the right to chastise the children. It shouldn't be the first thing he does. But if he sees something wrong, the woman cannot say, well, you've never been home, you're never home, don't talk to the children, leave them alone, don't punish them, it's not your business, I deal with them. No, this is a huge crime and mistake, and I'm going to use the word crime, from the mother if she does something like that. Because now the children are going to say, I can act up, and mom's going to protect me, and I can play with mom, I'm good. And when dad comes, mom's going to protect me because he's never home. And they get this conditioning to disrespect the father and say he's never home. I posted something on my Instagram where this father carries his son on the back and he's above the clouds and the sunny, and the father's below in the rain and the thunder, and the son says, oh, my father's never home, where is he? Because sometimes the children in the families, they don't realize the struggle and the sacrifice that some fathers go through to really provide for the family. And they have to be welcomed at home, and they have to be allowed to interfere and to educate the children and to show that this is the right way, and to even scream at them if he has to, and to punish them if he has to. That shouldn't be the first thing he does when he walks in the house. But it's okay if he does see something wrong to address it right away. He should come in the house and kiss them and sit them on his lap and hug them and see what they've done. So he also has to be very patient. But he is law in the house, the father. And the Prophet was like that. And I'm talking here about the good men. I'm not talking here about the men who are not good, just so we make it clear. Because a lot of you might be like, that doesn't apply to me or to my husband or to my family, because my husband doesn't even do anything. And it happens. Yes, a lot of men, sadly today, they do not take the responsibility. So hence, their families don't respect them. Even though they shouldn't, the family shouldn't treat them harshly or badly in any way. But sadly, of course, they lost the respect of the family. If he doesn't do his part, he will not be respected, and he will lose the status and the position that Allah has given. But basically, what I want to say is the Prophet ﷺ is to spend the time in developing the children, but he was outside a lot. He was running the affairs of the state. He was doing tarbiyah to others, so many others, right? He was, if you actually calculate, there was a Sheikh who calculated as to how much time he would spend with each wife, the Prophet ﷺ. Obviously, he had like 10, 11 wives at the same time. It would literally be like 2 days a month in terms of time. There was someone who actually calculated between the battles, between the things, teaching, being outside, traveling, and all that. It would be really very little time. I'm not saying that that's what should be done necessarily, but we see that it's the quality that matters, not the quantity. It's the quality that leaves the impact on the end. Because someone can be present there all the time, but they're not really there. They're not really doing anything. So we need to, husbands and wives need to talk about their position and what they do, their role, and how to make sure that the kids look at both of them as, wow, these are my heroes. And everyone has their own responsibility and their own rights. And it's very clear as to how it should be, so the kids don't get confused. So the Prophet ﷺ was a very busy man, but he still did tarbiyah to the Sahaba, and he taught them not only knowledge, very important here, the father is responsible to teach and to educate the kids. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Prophet ﷺ said, if you have 3 daughters that you educate them, you raise them well, then you will have Jannah. And then some say, what about 2? And he said, even 2, right? So it's a very big responsibility to educate them, to take care of them, children, and so on. It rests on the father as well, be it that it's financial, be it that it's time, be it, and it has to be time as well, that he spends time, that he talks to them. Like, you have to talk to your sons, fathers, and tell them, be a real man, do this, do that, guided exposure, take them outside, show them what's wrong, what's right, teach them. Same with the mothers, teach the girls. And sometimes the fathers teach the girls as well, and the mothers teach the boys as well, because there has to be a balance. The Prophet ﷺ did all that, not only to his own children, but to the children of others, right? Like Abu Umair, for example, right? With the little bird, Al-Nughair, right? So it's such a beautiful story. The Prophet ﷺ would sit and watch the children play. SubhanAllah, the beautiful story. Hadith, the Prophet ﷺ was sitting and watching children play. And one Sahaba came and he wanted to call his child, and he said, wait, let him play a bit more. So he let him play, and the Prophet was watching. Now, what a beautiful hadith. And again, he said, I want to call him. And he said, wait, let him play a bit more. And he would play. And they say, okay, now you can call him, but don't say, oh, son of so-and-so. Just call him by his name or something. Because amongst these children, there might be kids who don't have a father. SubhanAllah, look at how concerned the Prophet ﷺ was about their spiritual and psychological and emotional well-being, right? Because some Sahabas died in jihad, right? There's a lot of Sahabas. So he was doing tarbiyah to them, right? Because a lot of their fathers passed away in jihad, right? And we find, again, the community would right away support. You would not find sahabiyat or women who would leave without a husband. Usually if their husbands would die in jihad, which was the case, a lot of them, they would be married right away, very fast. After the iddah, after things, people would propose to them, and women were not left alone. Children were not left alone. And that's what the Prophet said, when he married one of the women, she said, I'm very jealous. Her husband died. And he said, don't worry, I'll pray to Allah to take care of your jealousy. As for the children, I will take care of them. I will take care of them. This is something that you don't hear when you men don't say that. Today they say, I can't take care of children. You know, they're looking for women who don't have children, and so on and so forth. So sadly, this is the problem. So this was the way of the Prophet ﷺ. Is the best way. There's so much that can be said about the tarbiyah and the parenting methodology of the Prophet ﷺ. SubhanAllah, but we all learn that we have to be together. We need, and I said yesterday as well, we need to come up with some solutions on how to network and create systems. Not enough to just lecture. I'm sorry, if we take only a lecture from this, that I just lecture right now, and we post it on Facebook or YouTube, it's just theory, and we might as well we lost our time. We need to come up with more programs and more definite ways of being a community and of taking care of our children and training our children to face the challenges that they are facing. Because the non-Muslims are doing it. They're constantly, whenever I pass going to the Surah, before there's all these Chinese Buddhist centers, and they always have some programs there for their kids. They're either football, soccer, badminton, volleyball, talking, karate, something outside, scouts, camp, this, that. There's every weekend when I pass by, there's something going on. And we are not really doing that. We need to do more, guys. We need to do more. We need to have a platform where we share all the information. What's happening here? What's happening there? This center is doing this. This organization is doing that. Okay, who wants to go there? We're not competing as to who's going to make more. We need to put it together and network and have a platform. All right, so let us talk about now quickly about some problems and how we can solve them. I'm going to go quick over them. Just give me 1 minute. I'm just going to connect my phone to the charger. Give me 1 second, please. Okay, assalamu alaikum. I think I'm good now. Yeah, just had to connect my phone. Everyone can hear me? Yeah, it's okay. Bismillah. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So let's start with some of the issues that we're facing right now in the 21st century with regards to parenting. And number one is, let's start light a little bit, but the issue of like kids not following the rules and regulations and parents not being able to really get to their kids to obey them. Okay, and to take it to another level, kids get rude. As we said, sometimes kids start hitting, spitting, hitting things, breaking things, not listening, rebelling. Let's use the word rebellion. And this comes under many, many different ways, right? Some kids want to leave the home. Some kids will swear at the parents. They will be very rude. It's not just like saying, no, I'm not going to do something. Like they start becoming violent and sometimes even swearing and having fits. And this is a huge problem that is very difficult to be addressed too late. That's why it has to be addressed very early. When you establish yourself as an authority in your family, it's not just another friend. You're not just friends, even though you should be friends, but they understand that there's a difference between you and them. Then that makes it very clear. So preemptive measures, you have to set the rules clear from day one. As little as they are. No, don't touch that. You know, some people try to say, don't make it negative. Don't word it as negative. What you're talking about? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala words things as negative as well. We do not. That's where the difference between the Western system and our system. Don't get caught up in this. Like, let us formulate everything is in a positive way. Instead of telling don't do haram, do good. Yeah, you should do good. But Allah says, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا zina. Don't come close to zina. Allah says it in a negative. So we follow Allah's way. Don't do this. Don't do that. Right? People say, you keep saying, no, 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 this is not good. You have to say it. How about we say it in a different way? This is, this is rubbish. Okay? This type of thinking that some of the educators have put forth and has caught a lot of attention is not correct. Why? Because I say so? No, it's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala formulates his ayat sometimes in the negative. لا تشركوا بالله. Okay, don't make shirk of Allah with Allah. And it's do not do it. Don't do shirk. Don't do this. Don't. Sometimes Allah says worship only Allah. So that's in the positive. But he also says it in the negative. Don't do shirk. Right? So it has to be very clear, even from a very young age, for those of you who are future parents, inshallah. Make the rules, even if they're 2, 3 years old. Don't touch that. Don't go there, baby. No, don't do this. Remember we talked about yesterday what our teacher of family psychology was saying. That sometimes you gotta tap that bum from the back and tell them, don't go on the street, don't do this, because they associate. So when you make those expectations clear, then you find balance, not violent, not abusive, balance with love, but you basically make it very clear for them as to what and how needs to be done. And through constant reinforcement, they will get it. And that's why you find in strict families that are loving families, united families, but strict in expectations, the children come out very, very, very disciplined, and they take responsibility. You find this, I found this in certain, in the UAE when I was living there, I found this in some of the families. And I was very, very surprised, SubhanAllah, that even the young boys, they were so responsible. They were like men and they're just like 12 or 11. But because they've been taught this respect to the father and to the elders and so on, and sometimes, and they would say that my father really gave it to me, but he loves them so much. And he would do the same to his little brother. And there was this hierarchy that I was so shocked, actually, to be honest, when I saw that a brother from an older grade would come and check on a younger brother and sometimes punish him. And the younger brother would accept that because that system was embedded into them, into their culture. No one said, teacher, I want to talk to the police. My brother's abusing me. No. Like, I was sometimes shocked, you know, because the expectations, the responsibilities, the system, and the respect was clear to them from young age. So they grew up with that. But when you grow up in a very confused way, and kids get away with everything, and it's just love, 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 right? It's one wing only, the bird will crash. And when it's too late, and the children start acting up because they're not scared, and there should be fear. There has to be fear as part of our ibadah, and there should be fear in the kids as well when it's out of respect, out of love, but there is fear that you will be punished. That's why Allah, you don't just love Allah, you have to fear Allah as well. So kids will learn that, but if nothing happens, they will misbehave, and subhanAllah, they turn against you. Now, children are beating their parents. Children are not scared. They don't care. They do whatever. They abuse parents. There's some stories, horrible stories of even sexual abuse of the children towards the parents, subhanAllah, which is disgusting if I tell you something. But this is what's happening and it's very late. So we don't even have a system where the police or the authorities can interfere properly. I mean, you can call them, but then they'll take them away and then the family breaks apart. So a lot of people suffer in silence because they don't want that to happen. So preemptive measures, set expectations, rules, enforce punishments, balance it with love from day one, from infancy. And they understand, trust me, they associate it slowly. They go through different stages of development and they will understand slowly at the right time that this is not the way to go. But if you don't, damage control is very difficult. Damage control is what most of us are going through right now. How do we fix something that's broken? Super gluing it is still going to allow and show cracks, and it might still break, right? It's not that easy. We need to have counseling. We need to have parents and children discussions. But because the mind has already formed, it's very difficult for a person to realize that they are wrong. Punishments can still come into place, but a lot of times will not be very effective because the person doesn't feel like they've done something wrong. And because the culture has been dictating that you don't have to listen to your parents, you don't have to pray, and you don't have to wear hijab, and you don't have to stay in the house, you can leave whenever you're free. The concept of freedom is something that's encouraged. Who tells you? Like, you're an adult now, you're 15, 16, go have fun with your friends, enjoy life, right? That's what the movies say, that's what the media says, and everyone wants to. Yesterday we had a question that a 17-year-old wants to move with her Western friend. And I said, why? It's because they've been conditioned to believe that this is the thing to do. And if you stand in the middle of that, you are considered as oppressor, someone who's trying to stop them from enjoying their life. Where do they get this kind of speech? Again, they've been conditioned through the media. They've been conditioned through that system. We've been colonized, our minds, our land, everything has been colonized. And now we see the effects of that, right? So in terms of fixing it right now, counseling, discussion, maybe some forms of punishment could work, especially for the 15, 16, 17-year-old. Parents can say, look, you're an adult person right now. I'm not going to treat you like a child anymore, but you're still in my house. I take care of you. Okay, once you are on your own feet, I can't leave you right now, because they'll say, yeah, I don't want to be in your house anymore. Let me go. You can't do that because they're not on their feet anymore. That's suicide. Once you get on your own feet, you have your own job, and hopefully by then they develop a bit more maturity, then you can go and do what you want. And I pray that you do the right thing, because I'm trying to tell you what the right thing is, and you might not understand now. But as long as you are still here, and I want you to be here because I want to make sure that you will be on your feet. So as long as you're still not on your feet, listen to me, follow my rules, and let's do it properly. Have these discussions with them. And a lot of times it might not turn out well. This is the reality, right? It might not turn out well. And who is to blame? We all have our blame, actually. All of us, not just you, all of us, because we're not a community. We're not learning Islam properly. We're just reading things. We're not internalizing things. We're not applying things. We're allowing the enemies of Islam to be very aggressive, and they're gaining so much ground. By the time we wake up, it's late. We lose. We snooze and we lose. Another issue is the issue of sex and dating and boyfriend, girlfriend. This is something that is linked to parenting because our kids are living in a society that has so much around. And it's a hyper-sexualized society. Everything is about sex, about relationships. And our kids are interested because it's part of the fitrah, so it sparks their interest. And they want to date. They want to have boyfriends and girlfriends. And if the parent stays in the middle of it or does something, then they appear as, again, trying to take away their freedom. And sadly, some parents, they facilitate the dating for their children. They think, well, they're not going to do anything. It's just seeing each other. They're just boyfriend, girlfriend. I found it was very shocking to know that some parents know about their kids dating and liking each other. Liking is going to happen anyway. It's part of fitrah, but it's encouraging it and acting upon it. This is what makes it haram. And you deal with it the way I deal with it as a parent when, one of my kids likes someone is I talk to them. I don't necessarily condemn them because I said the action is the condemnable one, while the feeling is something that it cannot control. Okay, a girl will fall in love or be infatuated with some boy in her class. It's always going to happen. Okay, and say vice versa. The guy is also going to like a girl. But you have to talk to them. You can't say, haram, and I'm going to take you away from school and cause a problem. What I do is I talk. The same way the Prophet talked to that boy who came and said that I did, allow me to commit zina. The Prophet didn't say, astaghfirullah, come here, give me the stick, I'm going to beat you. He tried to reason with him. He said, would you want this for your mom? Would you want this for your sister? Would you want this for your aunt? Right? He asked them these questions and he talked to them. So I try to use the same technique. I talk. And I listen and I say, okay, I understand. Yeah, you like this person, this guy. And, it's a natural feeling, but, life changes. There's going to be a lot of other guys that you might like. And, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to wait for the right time to get married. And I talk to them about marriage. I mean, at the age of 14, 13, 15, it is okay. It is appropriate because it kind of gives you the perspective of what's going to happen in the future. When you don't have any plans for the future and you're told, no, you can't do, it's like you don't see the end of the tunnel. So then you get depressed and you start rebelling. So talk, but explain to them as to why the action is wrong, why they shouldn't act on this feeling. Let them be your friends. Let them feel that they can come to you and talk to you. Because what do? They go to their friends. Why are their friends so important? Because their friends will listen to them. Oh, you like this guy? Oh, you like this girl? Oh, tell me more, right? So we have to act in that way, but in a halal way. Okay, tell me, let me understand. Okay, let me give you my advice. And I was young at once as well, and connect to them. Right? Remember when we did the whole diagram of how to advise people, and we said you either judge or you learn. And we said one of the statements that you say first, I know how you feel because I felt like that too. Right? So now you connect to that person because you've experienced some of these things as well. Sure, all of you had crush on someone in your life or something like that when you're young, right? So you tell them that it's okay, I understand how you feel. Let us talk about it. Let us, let's see how and what. I shouldn't act on it because of 1, 2, 3, 4. And that solves, I would say, 80% of the problem. And next time they'll come to you again with their problems because they feel, wow, my mom's cool. I can really talk to her. She doesn't just like, and my dad is cool too. I can really talk to him. He's not going to judge me just like that. And because the Prophet was not judgmental in that case, right? He talked to that man. He talked to people, even when they committed sins and mistakes, unless it was something huge, where really the witnesses were there and had to, incur the punishment right away. But in general, he would always find excuses for people. So talk to your children. Be their friend. Let them, you be the one, not Google, not the friends that they can turn to and tell you their secrets or what they like and what they don't like. And know that they're going to do it behind your back anyway, right? I always advise parents not to allow children to have their own phones, their own WhatsApp, their own social media. They can have their devices for schooling, for their work online, especially now when everyone's online. But, at certain times only, and not to have their private device and to have their own thing because they do connect online and they do start doing haram. And if I can tell you some of the stories, it's really very, very disturbing. right? And a lot of you, as you said, you might have discovered some of these things during the lockdown because you spent more time with your children, with your family, and you were able to discover some of these issues, and there are problems. I usually say in my house, no, there's no such thing. They cannot have their privacy when it comes to these devices, because it's a problem, right? And it linked to pornography as well. Pornography is a big issue, guys. Our young statistics show that about 90% of men have watched or do watch pornography, and about 50% of women. This includes young adults, young men, young girls, teenagers, especially with having their own devices. Very easy to do it, okay? Very, very easy. And it affects the way their tarbiyah and the way they're going to grow up, the development of their brain, of their relationship, how they see women, how they see men, how they see each other. And that's why a lot of the marriages are dysfunctional today. And most of the problems start from the intimate relationship, because the expectations have been distorted by pornography and media. Even just normal movies today, sometimes they'll have these crazy things going on. So when the kids watch that at that age, they want to either recreate it, so hence the dating and what, they have this desire. It's a natural desire, right? And when it's restricted, of course, in today's time, when they reach 19, 20, they have to wait another 10, maybe 5 to 10 years to get married, to actually do it in a halal way. So I always tell parents that this needs to be really, scholars need to look at this issue clearly as to how we can solve it, because it's not solved by abstinence. It's just a reality. It's not solved. The kids will turn towards either dating or cyber sex, which is pornography, because their desires are high. By the time they reach 16, 17, they are full-fledged desires, watching things, seeing things. Even if they don't watch pornography, they will see certain things. Their bodies are demanding that. Okay, it's just biology. It's just fitra. And the Prophet said, okay, fasting, but not everyone will fast, right? I always made a distinction between what should happen and what actually happens. And most of the, sadly, a lot of them, not most, but a lot of them will live in haram, will do something haram, either dating, and that's what I said. I think there's a statistics of how many children have been abandoned after birth in Malaysia 2019, and how the government took some steps to create certain centers for receiving these children, because the people used to abandon them by garbages, back streets, and all that, because there is a lot of rape, a lot of zina that takes place. You ask why? Because they're not allowed to marry, and because desires are high, and because there's so many blocks in halal, and because the society is not set up like that. The life is set up in such a way that you only get married 25, 30, right? Because you have to have this. So we do put our achievements and our lives before our deen. I'm not saying that everyone just go and get married right now while you're 12 or 15 or 18 or 19 or 20. That's not necessarily what it is, but we have to look at that to see how we can curb this problem. How can we have an issue? And I advised the people in the West before about having earlier marriages where the parents support the couple. They can still do their education, but they can live together. They can have almost like I don't like to use the term like halal dating, but it is like a halal date. Like they're not living together yet necessarily 100%, but they are married already, have nikah, so they do become halal for each other. They can go out, they can go to the mall together, I don't know, see a movie or something, eat together, have lunch, have dinner, but they're in halal. This is one of the things that's been proposed to Western communities in the West, because they're suffering from this. Are you talking about their girls are already pregnant at the age of 12, 13, Muslim girls, doing weird stuff in schools, and it's a big problem, right? And as I said, addiction to pornography, which causes problems for later on to their actual marriage, because the way the brain reacts to that. And a lot of marriages end up in divorce and lack of passion and love and care, because they're the act of being together, of being intimate, has been separated. There's no such thing as love or making love anymore. It's called sex. It's just it's just something, right? And that's something that is because of watching these things, right? So a lot of people feel that, in marriages, that it's just a duty, and there's lacking passion. And of course, when that happens, there's no love, no compassion, no mercy, and then everything starts becoming very, very accentuated. Every mistake becomes huge now. They look for mistakes. When I get to the bottom, a lot of times in the counseling session, or the issues that I'm dealing with, the problem is that. But people find other excuses. Other mistakes become huge, and people start picking on mistakes because the issue is actually that, the lack of compassion and love and connection between a couple. Okay, so as I said, people need to talk about that. Community leaders and experts have to find a solution to these issues. And I propose this nikah at a younger age, where parents can support their children and take care of them, let them be halal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to punish them, He will reward them. And it's better than to do it in haram. And the kids most likely will be doing some. From what I see, the one I do with it, there's a lot of problems, a lot. Right, we talked about that. LGBTQ is a big problem in parenting right now, how to explain to kids these issues. And it just has to be a very frank discussion that this is wrong. And sadly, there's a lot of that. Like yesterday, I've seen a few couples of girls, and it happens more because in Malay, I've seen a lot more guys being gay in the Middle East, in UAE. In Malaysia, I see mostly girls, a lot. It's very, very apparent. It's very clear. You find the butch-looking girl with the hijabi girl, groups of them having at least one of them there together. I've asked people, I've talked to different ones, locals, imams, sisters who are involved in this. I told you there's a sister who is, her job is working with some of the sultans and the ministers of religious affairs, and they take ustaz to the UK to meet some of these community leaders, gay, LGBTQ community, to learn from them as to why, how. They kind of go on a different mode. They don't really tell them exactly why they're there for. They just say, we're trying to learn how to this and that. But actually what I understand from the sister, and she is commissioned by the government, is that they go to teach them how to deal with these problems, how to maybe stop it in Malaysia. But it's coming as a big wave. It's a huge wave. And we have to do our part to tell the students, our kids, and our parenting, this is not correct. This is not right. Okay, this is not right. And because what happens is, from my experience, why do a lot of the girls or boys turn towards the same sex is because of the taboo of being with the other gender, and they have the desires and needs. And it's very clear that kids will start playing. I do catch, in being a teacher and a principal for many years, I've caught a lot of students playing around and fooling around with this sexual behavior with each other, just because they have this desire, or they're saying, we're just playing. And I'm very strict on us. You're not just playing. This is ridiculous what you're doing. You know what you're doing. And then they get embarrassed, and then they realize what's going on. While others in the West would say, it's okay to do it, but just do it in your private way, be safe and stuff like that, right? No, we outright have to condemn this. Say this is wrong. Because at that age, young age, when they do it a few times, they have the need or whatever. Some people have hormonal issues. It can lead to abuse. It can lead to abuse by one to the other. It can lead to abuse. And abuse becomes a norm, and it affects the sexuality of the person in the future. So we have to cut it right away. I'm very strict when I address this, and I don't allow the sisters or the brothers to play with it. And sometimes they just play with it. They just think it's just a game, but that game can turn into reality. And experimenting, and you find that this happens a lot in all boys school, all girls school, right? And it's not just an isolated case. This is not something that person is born with. This is nurturing. anybody can, if they don't have the right taqwa and the right, can turn to that. Right? That's why in jails where men have nothing else other than men, that's why they turn to that. And I have many cases that same with women. Okay. Yes, people should fear Allah. Yes, people should stay away from it. Should is the right word. But what happens, actually, what we call in Arabic al-waqiyah, or the reality, is totally different. Because for should, you have to have extremely high taqwa and knowledge and protection. And what actually happens is that most people don't. And they turn to these kind of things. So we have to address it face first. The same way the non-Muslims are trying to teach our children in primary with clowns and all this, that this is right. And now we saw that Disney is coming with a new movie coming out, or it's called Out, and it is about homosexual men, right? From Pixar, right? Pixar, right? Yes, that's correct. It's called Out, I believe. And they're pushing slowly. There's going to be definitely a prince or a lesbian queen or some princess. And in Beauty and the Beast, the last one, there was a gay character that was in love with one of the other characters. Okay, I don't know if you've seen or not. I haven't seen it yet, but I looked into it, and there was a gay character in Beauty and the Beast, the newest one. Okay, so they're very aggressive. They're pushing hard. And the problem is that a lot of Muslims are saying, what's the big deal? It's becoming normal. I am shocked because every time I go shopping, I can almost say on average, because I'm a researcher, scientist, whatever you want to call it, I notice things and I try to keep track of numbers and patterns. When I study a certain culture, I've lived in so many different cultures. I like to learn about the cultures. I could see on average, I see two lesbian couples on average when I go shopping, almost every day. Almost every day, if I go every time, it doesn't happen that I don't say two on average, sometimes three, sometimes more. Okay, very short hair girl dressed like a man, girl looking like a girl, holding hands, holding her. Sometimes the girl's wearing hijab. A lot of times they are Malay. Sometimes the girl is Chinese. This is what I've noticed. Correct me if I'm wrong. I put it up. Even someone recommended Dr. Zulkifl, who's the Minister of Religious Affairs. So this is what I've seen, you know what I mean? And people can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's happening a lot. So it's something we have to address. We have to tell them, this is wrong, guys. Sayyidina Lut, Qawm Lut, what happened to them? This is not a joke. It's not a joke, guys. Okay, it's not something, they were not punished because they looted people on the highway and they robbed them, you know, as some of the LGBTQT Muslim community is trying to say. In Canada, there's gay mosques. In USA, there are now gay masajid. Okay, and it's gonna come here as well. People are gonna demand it, right? We saw the article in last 10 days of Ramadan, Malaysia has to embrace LGBTQT community. How dare they put in the last 10 days of Ramadan? But it shows that they have a lot of influence, a lot of power to be able to publish an article in that time in Ramadan in the last 10 days. It was a huge slap in the face to the Muslim community, I would say, a very, very big disrespect. So these are things that we have to talk about. Okay, drugs, parenting, you have to talk. You have to talk to children about drugs. Don't think that you can hide it. I do a class with Sister Raihana. It's called Real Talk, and we talk about things. And sometimes the parents get concerned that should I be talking about this thing? And I call it guided exposure. And some parents have agreed. They said, I'd rather they hear it from you, Sheikh, than to hear it from their friends or from the media. And a lot of times when they get upset and whatnot, when they dig a bit deeper, they're like, oh my God, my kids already know about this. I didn't know. I didn't know that my kids know about this stuff. Please proceed, Sheikh. Please, sorry, I'm so sorry. I apologize. You know what I mean? So we have to straight up have guided exposure to some of these issues and tell them, guys, hey, drugs, alcohol, all these things, you know, that are showed so nice, the smoking in movies. It's like a social thing, looks so cool. Smoking weed, so cool. Drugs, drinking champagne, you know, people are toasting. I see my students, sometimes they're toasting in the cafeteria. I go to them and say, don't do that, guys. Why not, Sheikh? It's just Because guys, because of one, two, three, oh, okay, I see, you're right, you know. So talk, have dialogue, have discussions. Difference than just jumping on them and just punishing them. No. Remember when we did the advice model, we said we want to understand, we want to learn, we want to connect, we want to explain, we want to, you know, I know how you feel because I felt it too, but this is what I learned. Let me tell you my experience and how I see this issue and how maybe you can learn from it too, right? That was one of the first principles in advising someone. So drugs, alcohol, all these things have to be addressed right away. Chores, kids have to have an objective in life. They have to feel like they need to do something. This is something, as I said, just recently I was able to have a breakthrough with my wife, with the kids, but it took us many years and we kept at it. And now the kids they feel like they're responsible. And my son feels like he's got, you know, he's a naughty boy sometimes, but it's okay. Kids will act up. It's in their fit. Sometimes they're not growing up like we did. I grew up around forests, around mountains, going out. They're locked down. So the best they have sometimes is a park. So we need to exert their energy. We have to have camps. We have to have activities. We have to have places where they're allowed to expand that energy in a positive way. But, you know, like I'm talking to my son, he knows that when I'm not home, he is the representative of masculinity in our house. He is the male guy, the one who takes care. And he does that, you know, like he takes a salary from me. I pay him money to do certain things. And it's a salary. And we agree. And what I became impressed with that recently, he's been spending from his money to like buy food for the family. Sometimes when I'm not there, he pays for things. They order something, you know, he'll go to the store, he'll go downstairs to fill up the electricity. Like he starts doing things, right? But that took a long time for me to establish that with him. And I praise him for that. And the proximity that I use and the way I touch him and I hug him and it's a manly thing, but I encourage him. And I fight with him. Okay, I fight with him, right? So he is 11. Okay, I fight with him. He's gonna turn 12. I fight with him, and I do wrestling with him. I do karate with him. Like I rough him up, you know. And I say, you are a man. You know, if I'm not here, you're gonna defend your sisters. You're gonna defend your mom. You have to be physical. You know, and sometimes I rough him up. And he, you know, at the beginning, he didn't like that, but he sees that now the benefit, and he's strong. You know, he became a strong guy. And there's certain things that he still has to work on in terms of fear and courage. But it's really, I've seen some, and at one point I was very, how can I say, I was upset, and maybe desperate because I saw that he's not getting anywhere. Years after years, we're repeating the same thing and nothing is happening, right? And sometimes my wife would get depressed and, you know, getting sad. Oh my God, and we're telling 100 times, speak after yourself, do this, do that, contribute to the house, do this, do that. No, he's just sitting around and, you know, playing something. And we got upset, you know, but subhanAllah, I just said, we have to keep going, keep at it. It's going to come. A breakthrough will happen. And subhanAllah, it did happen. You know what I mean? So I've seen these when now he's taking initiatives, when now he, you know, certain things, small things, like when we go to the masjid, he'll pick my shoes and put it in front of my feet to put him on, you know. It's not that I'm expecting to serve me, but it's like he's seen this adab, this manner. He learned that from the Arabs, you know what I mean? We have a certain handshake that I do with him, you know, that's just between us. Like there's certain connection that has to be there. I'm not saying I'm the best father at that. I'm just trying to share my personal experiences and challenges as well. It was very challenging. Until today, it is very challenging because my son has some, you know, temper issues. And yes, he's a strong guy, but maybe a bit too much sometimes, you know what I mean? So he gets into trouble. And believe it or not, I suspended him twice in the school, you know, and I punished him. I punished him 2 times. He got suspended in my school because of misbehavior and because of fighting. And I'm not ashamed to say that. And people are shocked. They're like, why are you suspending your son? You should just give him like, but I said, no, because that's the rule. Because he needs to be suspended. And he learned, and I, pulled him in front of people and apologized, and he realized. And, I actually had to punish him in front of other people. And it's okay. It happened. He understood why. That's the main point. He understood why he's getting punished. I'm not ashamed to say that. Right? And it helped him. It did help. He still has a lot of issues that he has to work on. He knows that. But that's the point, realizing that you need to work on certain things, what is right and what's wrong, and you work towards it. No one's perfect. Everyone's going to have issues like that. So that, the relationship has to be, but we discuss these things openly, open discussion, right? That we need to face these problems, guys. Okay, so these are some of the things that I think are taboo. And I do talk to my kids also, last but not least, and then you can maybe share some things with regards to Islam. And when I mean Islam, I tell them that people leave Islam. I talk to them about the movement that is fighting Islam. I want them to have a world view of Islam, not a community-only view of Islam or a family view of Islam. I want them to understand that we are an ummah, and that we are at war. And if you think that we're not at war, then man, you really need to revisit everything that's happening around the world. Because we are. And I'm not saying here, let's just fight with everyone. No, I'm just saying that you need to know how to develop your skills and yourself to be able to defend yourself and even push forward. And they need to understand that there's people who are leaving Islam, and there are people who are coming and attacking Islam violently, such as Pixar putting this LGBTQ stuff and more other stuff. Alcohol, drugs, partying, promiscuity, zina, riba, all these things that are pushed on our communities. You're talking about, we're Muslim countries, guys. Forget about our Muslim countries. People want to leave and go Muslim countries and non-Muslim countries. We're talking about Muslim countries. We're suffering of that. So I tell them that we have problems, and people are leaving Islam, and you guys need to know your faith will be challenged. And actually, I use this strategy with students as well. And even when we do real talk or boys to men with Sister Rahana, we have a lot of students, sometimes 60 students, 60 kids. And I tell them, guys, you will be faced with someone who's going to tell you that your faith, your Islam is wrong. Are you going to be able to respond? Are you going to be able to tell them, no, you are, right? This is something that I really focus on, for at least for them to understand and to know. All right, I know that I've gone a little bit over time, if you don't mind, but it's important to wrap up properly. So let me now check the questions and answer, and then bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we can take someone, if someone wants to say something on the mic, we can do that, inshallah. All right. In general, what are the roles of the fathers in parenting as compared to mothers? What are the tips to ensure proactive involvement of fathers in parenting? Fathers usually at home. Yeah, so it's not the same. Mothers, because their original position should be in the taking care of kids, which is one of the greatest, most respected, noble jobs in the world, but it's been destroyed by the liberal movement. So women have been convinced that it's not a good job, that they should be out there like men. But can you please mute the mics? Okay. But so women have the mothers have the main role when it comes to the house and the parenting in the house. However, that does not remove the responsibility from the father. The father really needs to focus on quality. Quantity he can never give the same as the mother, because he has to provide for the family. So he is outside 8 to 10, sometimes 12 hours. But when he does come, that small time that he does spend and he has to make out time, that is very important. That is quality, has to be strong, has to be meaningful, has to be so powerful that it does leave a huge impact on the students, on the children. and they have a big responsibility. Fathers have a huge responsibility. They cannot say hands off. I don't have to do anything. They have to. Okay. How can a mother teach a boy to be masculine? It is usually by theory and by talking to them and by pointing the real role models. Because yes, the woman can, and some women we find that Imam Bukhari, Imam Ahmed, Zubair, Abdullah bin Zubair, and others were raised by real women, but they had role models that they can point to. And even if the fathers were not in the picture, sometimes their father were real men. And because the woman respected the father, she would never turn the children against the father. They did have problems. You know, Asma and Az-Zubair ibn Awam, they divorced because Az-Zubair was quite tough. I mean, he was a bit, you can say that he would punish Asma. And these are two great Sahabas, but they divorced, which we learn here that life is not just the pink and blue, you know. There are problems even amongst the most best people, right? Sometimes we get depressed because we think that we have problems, and we think of Sahaba like angels. They never had problems. They did have problems. But the mothers can teach the boys to be masculine. They can teach them the theory, but they have to point out towards those real models. The problem is that we don't have those real masculine models. But the mother can take the child to karate, to jiu-jitsu, to judo, to archery, to horse riding, where they develop these masculine skills, okay? And they tell them and encourage them to be a man. SubhanAllah, I remember when, I think it was Abdullah bin Zubair, that he went to his aunt and, you know, or to his mother actually, yeah. And she hugged him and she saw the armor on him and she said, "What is this?" You know, said someone who seeks for shahada is not doing this, you know, extra thing. And subhanAllah, you know, this is a woman telling that to a man. You know, you can see the understanding. I mean, the courage and the encouragement. She didn't say, "Give me that armor. I'm gonna go and fight because I'm like you." No, but you see the words of encouragement, of courage is coming from a woman, right? So, but that's again, we have to understand, we have to have knowledge, we have to know our position. You know, some women have to work, no choice. I agree, and they have to be independent. There is no part-time for women, sometimes no protected time. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Sadly, some women do have to work. And that is because, again, we're not a community. We don't take care of each other. It's not easy. And yeah, the theory is very, I mean, we should be able to do things, but in reality, it is a big problem. And some women do have to work. And sadly, you know, I wish our community will be more united to solve these problems. If this thing cannot work, maybe another system can work. The system, obviously marriage, women have to be married. Maybe it doesn't work. Okay, there's another choice and another choice and another choice and another choice. Not just one choice or two choices. There should be a lot of other choices to solve the problem, not one choice only. Right, the problem is, again, we're not united. Sometimes people are not to be together. Sometimes people are not to have a job. Sometimes people are not to have, you know, support. But we need to solve those things together. When the woman is left alone for her to figure out things, then of course she's going to have to work and do all kinds of stuff. I don't think too much tarbiyah can hurt. It cannot distance someone if it's done the right way. If it's done the right way, it cannot. Because we're not here confusing tarbiyah with too much, how can I say, you know, support too much and just always helping. No. Tarbiyah, part of tarbiyah is to make a child independent, right? It's how you do things. Okay, that's nice, mashallah. Yeah, sometimes the husband works in the odd hours, everyone's sleeping. Sometimes the woman should wait for her husband, even in the odd hours. That's a big ajr for for her from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Put the kids to sleep. And I know it's not easy, but Allah will bless you, inshallah, to make a big sacrifice. Not every time. I feel depressed, inadequate because I'm a single working mother, trying to make sure my daughter gets the best Islamic education. Very limited view, thinking that women work to chase for career and to believe that we work and do our best to provide. Yeah, of course, that doesn't apply. What I was saying doesn't apply to cases like this. It applies to those who don't need to do this, but they're just chasing it because they want to. They don't even think about getting married. They don't even think about, having a family. It's, it's not about, it's not circumstantial for them. It's just they want. They have the intention. It's a niyyah. Your niyyah is not to do that, to chase and to be a career and to be a leader. Your niyyah is to provide for your child. So that is something very respectful. And sadly, again, because our community is not united enough to protect these type of women and to give them many options, not one option, to be able to solve that problem, it leads to these things. But I was not saying, no, not your type or this kind of women who are providing for their children, no, and are single mothers. I'm talking about the women of a movement who are trying to and opting in and choosing to be alone. Not because they're alone, because this is what's happening. They're choosing it. They don't want to be with anyone. They don't want to be married. They don't want to be under their husband because they think that they're better. So it's an issue of intention and circumstance. What are general tips on counseling female teens who want their independence? It's because, well, they need to understand their position. And again, it might be something that is damage control, right? They've already been formed their mind as to, they want independent. They need to understand what their life has to be. Where's their position in terms of Islam? That's something important. And also to understand that they will meet a righteous man who will be their husband. A lot of people don't believe in love anymore. They don't believe that I will meet that special person that I can build a family with. They've just been told that you can just be alone. You don't need a man. You don't need anything. It's a lot of parenting that's not coming necessarily from the parents, but from the media that's making them feel like that. So we need to work with that to help them understand that, look, there's a better system for you. And show them that a lot of the women who have gone through the same at a young age, they wanted to be independent, and they become 20, 30, 40, PhD, well, successful. They reach 40, 45, they're like, oh my God, I wish I would have a child. I want a man now. I want a family. I want, I really regret not having grandchildren. And they're advising, even Western women now, non-Muslims, are pushing back and telling women, don't do the same mistake we've done. Okay, I use other ways of discipline than beating and work for my children. Deprivation of privileges, catching them when they do good, so young children not need spanking. Yeah, I agree. Not everyone. I didn't say everyone. It depends. The spanking and the punishment comes in certain situations when it's really, at a very, very crucial or problematic behavior. Not every time you have to spank for everything. You should reward your children. That's why I said Bashiran wa Nadir. I was using the example of the Quran. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives glad tidings, rewards, but also punishes, right? So it depends. The punishment usually come when? It's when really bad things have done, really extreme things. But reward happens for the smallest deed, right? We reward them for the smallest thing and reinforce that type of behavior. So I think you might have not understand what I said. I hope I was clear. I'm not calling for children to be spanked for everything and beaten for the smallest thing. No. I'm talking about the punishment has to fit the crime or the misbehavior. And this is a principle of Islam. Again, you find throughout the Quran that punishments happen only in very, very small cases of extreme misbehavior, while rewards happen for the smallest deed, right? The smallest thing, the niyyah can be, or the intention can be rewarded, isn't it? So definitely positive reinforcements is very important. It should be for everything. I think that is the author, Dr. Muhammad al-Mahdi Jenkins. And I think he is a convert. And Dr. Abdulaziz Azimullah, I think, was one of his mentors, if I'm correct. What would be your advice on how we can control the conditioning of our children who are exposed to such as music, social media, movies? Because they're exposed to many levels, friends, cousins, sometimes even to their grandparents. When we are parents try to shut the exposure, we're deemed as being extreme radical. Yeah, of course, this is a huge problem. As I said, there's preemptive measures, and they are, damage control. I think even for us, we tried so hard to stick to Islamic stuff and to reduce it. And then at one point, it's very difficult to be against the wave. That's why I encourage people to invest in media. We need Muslims to create more media, because what we can do is, you have to understand, the means is music, this, that, but what is being put on it, that's what makes it halal or haram. So if we give alternatives, halal movies, halal things, halal nasheed, halal this, halal that, which with a message that we control as to what is being said and it's in line with Islam, then we can replace these things with righteous things. But if when we tell our kids no, not allowed, this is not good, then you say, okay, so what do I do? Nothing, right? You have to replace it. Stories of the prophets, how many, sometimes may be quite graphic. For example, story of Habil and Qabil, how can you make it more palatable for children? Okay, with stories of the prophets, they're graphic. I think there's nothing wrong with it. You just have to choose the right words, right? Because kids have to also, it's part of life to understand, right? This is two brothers, one killed the other. People need to understand this is part of life. How we say it, they're not going to say, oh, and the blood splashed and he killed them and he chopped them. No. You just kind of explain to him in nice, kind words that this is what happened. They got upset, jealous, and he hurt him and he died, right? So just choosing the right words. But kids have to be taught the realities of life, including death and life. Some parents are very fearful of their children being exposed to terms like porn, masturbation, sex when their children are like 10 or 11 years old. They worry that their children will get curious and go on Google and come up with worse stuff. Could you please discuss? Yeah, it's like being stuck between a rock and a hard place, because a lot of them do it anyway. They will check it. They will hear it in the school. Parents only think that they don't know. In most of my experience, not all, when parents had raised this issue, they found out later on that their kids were already very well versed in these things, and then they missed the train. Literally, the parents missed the train by thinking that I'm going to keep them safe. And that's why I said there's guided exposure. Is there a risk that the students are going to go look for things? Yeah. But at least we've told them that this is wrong. We've already taught them that this is wrong. While if they're going to learn by themselves, they're not going to have that control or that setup to tell them that it was wrong. They might just look into it and look. It might take, even if they're exposed to it for a week or two before they know that it's wrong and they start feeling bad, it's enough to make damage. So I'd rather tell them, expose them, guided exposure, because Allah talks about zina in the Quran. Allah talks about haram in the Quran. The Prophet talked about these things. The other day we're reading Surah Al-Baqarah about Hajj, that a man is not allowed to have sex with his wife in Hajj. And his children reading through the Quran. So I had to explain to them in a way, and most of them know what's going on, because they watch, they see the kissing, the thing, the affection, the thing on the movies, and it's all over. It's all over, guys. It's very difficult unless you're living somewhere in a village or on a mountain and there's no social media, they have no phone, no access to internet, they don't watch TV, then okay. But I would say it's almost impossible to think that they've never been exposed to this before. And I'd rather expose them and tell them what's right or what's wrong, educate them, and for them to expose themselves or their friends or their cousins or their guys at school or girls at school or some message on social media, and then they get curious and they get into worse stuff. So it's kind of between a rock and a hard place. There's no real way of getting around it except through guided exposure and teaching them what is wrong about it. You're never going to be able to control all these things and think that it's not going to, and they're never going to be exposed. And most of the parents think they're protected. They never have this talk. They will never have this discussion. So might as well pass it on to me. I'll do it for you. Because a lot of parents do not want to have this discussion with their kids. Sadly, my father had this discussion with me when I was 9 or 10. And this is how non-Muslims do it. They do it. But he just told me, stay safe. And go ahead, man. Go ahead, lion. Do what you have to do. And this is not the right message, right? It's not the right message, right? It's not the right message. But a lot of parents wait out of, okay, you do it, to their wife. No, you do it. He's a boy. No, okay, you do it. The man should have a discussion with the boys. Straight up, like a man, and say, this is what it is. Yeah, the kids are going to get curious about many, many things. But once we lay down the foundation of what is right or what is wrong, and strictly tell them this is how bad it is, and how it can destroy your life, how you can never feel true love in your life again if you get into this stuff, maybe it's going to help them to stop. And they're going to think, they're going to hear our words twice before they look into this stuff. But if we just leave it up to chance that, oh, they're protected, there's a huge chance that they're going to end up in it themselves without us, and we're going to miss the train. And it's going to be too late after. If you let 1 year pass and kids are into this stuff, it's a big problem. It can really cause a lot of problems. Kids not raised Islamically in family, hijrah, would you suggest the right approach to start instilling Islamic values ages 10 to 15? 15 is very late, guys. 15 is very late. '50 is very late. But we can. Yeah, family needs to move to a place where it's more Islamic, be together, be united. We need more Islamic products, more movies, more lectures. The problem is we're lecturing only. The kids don't like lectures. That's why, we have to. I recommend to people they have to go serious. I know people. There's issues with some Sufism and some issues, even Aqidah issues, but it is a series that shows the strength of Islam and how the Khilafah was built on the Ottomans. And I know Malaysia is connected to the Ottomans to an extent, so I recommend that to be watched as a family. I watched it with my kids. Do I agree with everything? I tell them what's right and what's wrong in that movie. Okay, I tell them what's right, and it's quite violent as well. But they need to understand that these people grew up learning how to fight. The Sahaba, the Prophet ﷺ, as young, they knew how to swing swords. And Abu Jahl, right? He was killed by 2 young men, two boys. Okay, so we need to understand that. We need to understand these things. And I watch it with my kids. I show them what's wrong. I discuss it. I stop it. We talk. It's the only thing that I can kind of, there's Islam in it, and there's victory, and there's strength, and right. As for the laws, I think laws are important, but it has to be done in the systematic way that the Prophet said. That was not the first thing he talked about. You have to develop first the love, the attachment, the belief, and then the laws can come. Right? You have to first build the foundation. Again, it's all a system. It cannot be just strictness and discipline. It has to be together. Love first builds the foundation, faith, trust. Then the laws come later, discipline, but balance with love, balance with care, discussion, communication, friendship. It has to be a whole package. It cannot be this one or that one. Yeah. Okay. Anxiety and depression with kids. Yeah, kids hurt themselves. They do cutting. They use X-Acto knives or blades to cut their wrists a little bit or on their hands. I've dealt with quite a few of these cases. It is obviously they've seen this. They read it from. There's an application be very careful of called WetPad. WetPad. There's a lot of stories about lesbian, gay, love stories, cutting, people hurting themselves. Usually it's associated with, so they get depressed because the cases that I dealt with so far, there's always a boy or a girl involved and they don't like each other anymore. They're being hurt and they want to hurt themselves. Or issues of friends, that their friends don't like them anymore. They're talking bad about them, bullying them. So they feel like hurting themselves. So they cut themselves. Okay, you have to be careful because this cutting can lead to suicidal type of behavior. So do not. Sometimes you have to restrain. Sometimes you have to really take a strong approach toward this because it's not a game. Okay, it's not a game. So you have to talk to them. You have to understand where is the problem start from. Where did it start from? Where did the problem start from, guys? We need to identify the fulcrum of the infection. Right? You don't feel guilty about it because it's not necessarily your fault. Okay, there's so many things. Number one, that they read somewhere how to cut themselves. They learned it from their friends. They've seen things on social media, okay, which shows again that kids do know, right? So you have to talk. You have to provide the love and support. And again, if we don't take preemptive measures, right, we don't teach them what's right or wrong, they will themselves end up, and it will be very difficult or too late for us to address these issues. Okay? So talk to them, get them to counseling, talk to someone who can counsel them, who can discuss this issue with them. A lot of times just through discussion it can be solved. And I said, because they think the problem is depression or cutting, no, it's usually have to do with a girlfriend, boyfriend, with bullying or friends talking bad, cyberbullying, and they get depressed because my friends don't like me anymore, they're talking about me, so I'm gonna hurt myself. If you use physical discipline, children may think hitting is okay, then they imitate with friends. Okay, there's a difference between that because I'm not telling you to just beat your children. I'm talking about discipline. And when you discipline them, you tell them why, what's been done wrong, so they can actually understand. The little ones, okay, that is a good argument for the little ones might imitate that and so on, but that's where usually they're not alone. And if they do it, you also apply discipline on them not doing that. So they realize that that's not what you would do, right? And it might be a contradiction in their mind, but they will understand that when they go to another developmental stage and they start comprehending this issue, right? They start understanding it. So you discipline your child, and when they want to use that type of behavior towards other children, you again discipline. I'm not saying beat them again, but you explain to them it's not right, it's wrong, and so on, so they can understand the authority, because it's not an issue of hitting, it's an issue of who does the punishment, right? We cannot say, well, Allah is going to punish us, or He punishes us, I can punish other people. No, because it is an issue of authority, of chain of command. Who is responsible to do the discipline? You cannot say, well, the police has gun, I can have a gun too, or I'm going to apply the same. No, because they're responsible. That's their authority. Their chain of command is higher than us. They've been empowered that. Same with parents. And the child will understand that later on. And that's why you as a parent has to apply discipline on all levels, even when the child might imitate some of your mistakes. Just because you might make certain things or certain behaviors, that doesn't mean that they can do it. And you make it clear to them. It's an issue of chain of command. Who does the punishing? Who's allowed to? Right? So that's what I was saying. Okay. So I think this is it in terms of the questions. Right? I hope I didn't leave anything unclarified. You can always, inshallah, message Sister Shamin or myself and let me know. That's right. Yes, a lot of problem with the Western problems that it's about the friendship. You have to be friends with your kids. Yes, you can be friends. Even Ali ibn Abi Talib said that, but it's only at a certain stage. But even friends warn each other. Even friends, if they do something wrong, they will protect, right? But again, it's an issue of authority. The parent is not the child. The parent is not friend as on an equal level. The parent is an authority. So he is allowed or she is allowed to discipline because of their position, right? It's all about position, right? Everything is interpreted based on the position. When we say رَبَّنَا آتِنَا, God, oh Allah, give us. It's an order in the Arabic language. But we don't order Allah. It is dua. When Allah says, okay, kada or kada, do this and that, then it's an order. You understand? Why? Because it's of the hierarchy. So the words take context and interpretation, correct understanding based on the hierarchy. Allah says something to us, it's an order. We say something to Allah in the same wording, it is a request, a dua. You understand? Why? Because of where you are positioned in the chain. Right? So the parent is above. It can never be like that. Child. Okay, barakallahu fikum. Anything else, inshallah? Anything else? May Allah bless you. Inshallah. May Allah bless all of you. Alhamdulillah. Okay. Last night, I was classmate when we were much younger. My jaw dropped literally. Asked my daughter. Okay, this is a very important message. I think everyone can read it. She said these are normal with the Malay Richie kids nowadays. She said you cannot tell a Malay girl from Kardashian. Yep, it is happening. Yes, I'm telling you. I think everyone can read what Sister Shamin is saying. Your jaw will drop a lot. That is why I believe that guided exposure is important. We need to teach them what is wrong before they learn that it's right from someone else. And it's too late sometimes. It is too late. This is normal with, the rich kids, of course, nowadays. It's a lot of problems. A lot of problems, especially, with rich people. It happens because, again, they are more privileged and they feel that the laws sometimes don't apply to them, so they will misbehave. And because parents are busy, maids, this and that, things are taken care of, families not together, it's easy to slip. It's easy to slip. Anything else? Anything else, inshallah? Okay, barakallahu feekum, jazakallah. Sorry for going a bit over time. I think about 40 minutes over time, Allah. But we need to wrap up properly, inshallah. But I hope that we can take it to the next level. I hope Sister Shamin can organize more sessions, more practical sessions. I think we talked about putting some kind of camping together for the students, and where there's more action, there's more, not just theory. We need to put things in action. We need to network. We need to take care of our people. We need to talk about marriage, about raising up the kids. We need to see what do we do with our sisters who are single, our sisters who are widows, our single parents, brothers, men, children who are suffering. How do we counsel these girls who want to be independent? How do we counsel these kids who want to hurt themselves? I think we need to establish this system, because I see a lot of issues, and not just here, but throughout the world. And we need to come up with systematic ways. We need to address this. These are things that are pending on the table, and we cannot just talk about it. I'm so sorry if I'm just lecturing you right now, and that's all we're going to take out of this. This is horrible. So please reach out. Let's think of what we can do, how we can set up things to be sustainable, to be with purpose, with objective, and really get things going. Yes, we can talk about many things, but it has to be practical. We need to get down to action. We need to start acting. Hopefully the MCO will be lifted and we can have some in-person, meetings and so on, inshallah. Okay, Jazakumullah khair. May Allah bless you. Please leave I hope the lesson can be there it's recorded so we can download it. I haven't been able to do yet, but I would like to download both of them so we can share with others as well. And inshallah, let's take it to the next level. Jazakallah khair, Sister Shamin. Everyone else, I think you guys know exactly who to go to if you have to for more questions. If you want to support the projects, if you have ideas of what we should do, what kind of events, what kind of active projects. I'm going to say it again. Too much theory, guys. Our ummah is suffering from too much theory. There's a word in verbal, we call it verbal something. I'm not going to say what it is, but there's a lot of theory, guys. We need to start acting. because Islam is not just an intellectual endeavor. Okay, it's not a philosophy where people discuss ideas. This is about action. We need to get down to action. So I expect your feedback and your help, inshallah. Barakallahu fikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.